Good morning. Greetings, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you're fine. Um, how was your night? Hope you slept well, depending on where you're watching from. Today, I want to talk about something fundamental to every human being existence. Talk about something that's at the rock of everything we're doing. It's the fuel to everything we do in life. It's called dopamine. I know a lot of us have heard of dopamine before. Some of us have heard that dopamine makes you feel good. Some of us have heard that dopamine, I should say dopamine with just illegal activities, and that is naturally what it is. So I just want to try and break it down to more or less like enlighten everyone on what dopamine actually is and give everyone the chance to understand themselves more. Because I feel if everyone can understand themselves more, you end up making positive decisions because you're able to understand the causes and effect of everything you do. So, simply put, dopamine is not happiness. No, dopamine is not happiness. That has been a myth that has gone around for too long. Dopamine is when you feel happy. No. That's not dopamine. Dopamine is more or less like anticipation, motivation, something that keeps you going, something that gives you the strength to keep on moving. Keep on doing things, keep on trying things, keep on putting in effort. That is dopamine. It's a molecule actually, it's a naturally occurring um stuff in our bodies that is secreted at different times in our brain. Our brain has different receptors. Receptors are things that more or less like they're waiting to get something, and once they get that thing, it gives a response in our bodies. You get. So, for example, now when we are craving a particular food, or let's say we want to eat Panarottis pizza, because actually I think Panarottis pizza is one of the best pizza one can eat. So, like when you're craving something, or when you're about to eat, like let's say a pizza or a very sweet meal that you've prepared at home, you have your dopamine level is rising already because you're anticipating a reward. You're anticipating something nice already. You get. So when you eat it eventually, that satisfaction you have is not dopamine. That satisfaction you have is from serotonin or endorphins. You get. But the act of wanting something, the act of craving for something, desiring something is caused by dopamine. You get. So I think I'll just try and break it down more. Let me try and explain what dopamine actually does in our bodies. So dopamine is motivation molecule. I use the word motivation because for everything we do in life, we need to be motivated to do it. For everything as little as walking to as complex as building Fortune 500 companies, you need to have a motivation. Like you need to be motivated to do something. You need to have something that is pushing you to do better. You get. Dopamine is what makes us move towards things. Dopamine is what gives us like the you just see yourself keep on putting that effort because there's something as it's being secreted inside you naturally. You are being motivated to accomplish things, to carry out things, to complete things, to fulfill things. Dopamine is a building block of human existence. I'll just put it to you that way. Dopamine is a building block of human existence because so many things that have been innovated. Do you know how many times people fail? Do you know how many times scientists fail before they get something right? Like some innovations failed over 100 times. What keeps them going? What keeps them to keep on trying is dopamine. Yeah, because when you fail one, two, three times, you might chicken out, but when your dopamine is secreted, even when you're failing, you still feel like there's something at the end of the tunnel. Let me try again. Let me give it another try. You get that's dopamine at work. You get and it's usually secreted in healthy quantities by our bodies. You get based on our lifestyle, based on where we are in life, because a child's dopamine secretion is going to be different from an adult's dopamine secretion because they're in two different phases of life. Yeah, they can't compare an infant's what an infant thinks of is different from what an adult thinks of. So depending on where you are in life, different things can trigger your dopamine level to increase, but some are healthy, some are not healthy. So I'm going to break it down to you so you know which is which and you know how to move around it. You get. So like I've said before, dopamine is what makes you do things, achieve things, is the motivation molecule, like I've said, you know. And even as the world is evolving in tech, AI, science, and all of that is still going back to dopamine because if those innovators are not motivated enough, you won't see them like insisting on continuously trying. Like for example, now Elon Musk was the first person to do vertical landing of a space rocket. If the first time he tried it, even conceiving the idea alone to try it is still based on dopamine, because if you don't have a reasonable dopamine level, you won't see yourself pushing yourself to invest a lot of monies in R&D, to try and give it a try. You won't have the mindset to even give it a try because you're not motivated. But when you have a healthy level of dopamine in your body, you'll be motivated to achieve things that you think are positive. Not only positive, some people do negative things because of dopamine also too, but I don't encourage that because if your actions are not going to yield any positive return to mankind as a whole or to yourself, then they are self-inflicting activities. The activities that don't have any positive impact. You get. So that's something you need to know. Without dopamine, we'll still have been in the Stone Age. The Stone Age where we live in rocks, we're living in caves using rocks to sharpen wood, form weapons. Even as a dance, we still had dopamine to be sharpening the wood. Because if I'm to be frank with you, if you don't have dopamine level, your dopamine level is extremely low, you won't even care about anything. You won't care about anything on earth. You will just wake up, lie down on your bed. You won't even be motivated to eat. Then next thing you're depressed, and it's a cycle that can go really bad when you have low dopamine. you know and something that you need to know is there's a misconception that dopamine levels spikes very high after you've achieved whatever you want to achieve. No, dopamine levels spikes the highest just before the reward happens, because dopamine and habits, they go one they go hand in hand. I spoke about habits the last time and I explained to you habits in depth. Now I'm explaining to you dopamine in depth now. You get. For example, now when I'm talking about dopamine spikes, a person can, maybe it can be like 25th. Today is what? So today is 23rd. Okay. Some bankers, bankers. Some bankers do get paid a week before the end of the month. And today being 23rd, some bankers will receive their salary today. Some Access Bank staff will receive their salary today. Don't ask me how I know, but it's part of life, sure. So when they are anticipating their salaries, every SMS notification they might receive will trigger a dopamine level in them because a dopamine spike in them because they're anticipating to see access bank alerts. You get, and when they now see that alert, their dopamine level spikes higher when they click on like to open the SMS. Then when they now finally see the credit alert, or it might just be a debit alert for maybe a subscription they did. If it's not a credit alert, dopamine level falls drastically. And even if it's a credit alert and it's a salary, you get, they will not feel good due to what? Serotonin and endorphins, not due to dopamine. Dopamine is what motivates you to do something, motivating you to check, motivating you to make a move is dopamine, but the feel good you feel eventually is from serotonin and endorphins. You get, so that's an example of how like dopamine works. On that one again, it can be like maybe like I told you, when you order for a meal and is a meal you're craving for, as you're anticipating it, every minute is looking like an hour, every second looks like a minute, so in that phase now, your dopamine is at work. Your dopamine level has spiked and it is making you to anticipate. You're anticipating things, yet you can't. You're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's more or less like it's on your mind. It's just the only thing you're thinking of, because that's what dopamine does. It makes you motivated, you know. And I'll talk about something called the dopamine loop. The dopamine loop now is more or less like what happens in stages, is similar to the habit loop. Because I told you habit has cues, activities, and reward. That's for habit. Then dopamine itself, the loop starts from a trigger, which is similar to a cue somehow, the action you get, and the reward, then repetition of the cycle itself. Dopamine loop is not bad though. I'm not saying it's bad to have dopamine in your system. No, dopamine is essential in your system. It's essential for your existence, because without dopamine in your system, you won't do anything. Even to learn how to walk, as basic as learning how to walk, you need to have a healthy amount of dopamine in your system. You get, so you won't learn how to speak, how to eat by yourself, how to feed yourself. You need to have a healthy amount of dopamine in your system. That is for infants now I'm talking about. That shows that dopamine is not bad to have dopamine in your system. Because having dopamine in your system is not bad. You get, it's not bad actually. And if you follow through as I'm talking with you, you understand where I'm coming from, and you understand the negative aspect of what I'm trying to point out, so that we can eliminate from the equation. You get, so the trigger is more or less like something we see, something we think of, or something that comes to our mind. Maybe you're in an environment and you start to perceive the smell of a bakery, and you begin to crave the bread. Dopamine starts to rise because you've tasted that bread before. I know the bread is sweet, so that's you sensing it with your nose is going to increase your dopamine level in your system. You get, the action now is like we pursue to carry it out, to check, do we have the money to get what we want? Can we place that order now? Can we do this now? That is with the action. We are trying to see, can we do this? Can we get this done? Dopamine motivates you to get it done. So you start seeing yourself making moves to actually get it done. You see yourself either start to check, how can I buy this thing, or how can I acquire this thing that I'm craving for? That craving now is by dopamine. You get, then you see yourself doing things to try and actualize what you want to get it done. You get, then the reward now is when you get it done eventually and you start feeling good. Those are by other things being secreted, not dopamine. I told you serotonin and endorphins are most likely what is being secreted. And it's not just those two, there are other complex chemicals, but these are the two that I think I will have to talk about later on. You get, these are things that are being secreted when you eventually do something and you start feeling good. You feel good hormone is serotonin, you feel good, you feel happy, you feel excited while you're eating it, as you're tasting the meal in your mouth, as your tongues are interpreting the flavors and everything, sending it to your brain, and your brain is receiving it, and this and that. Those things now, all of that combined together is what makes you feel good. You get, it's not just the dopamine that makes you feel good at that point. Because I told you, dopamine is motivation, motivating you to do something. You get, so it's good to have dopamine in your system. A healthy amount of dopamine is essential for your survival on earth, because without a healthy amount of dopamine in your system, you would see yourself not be motivated to do things, and it can be really, really dangerous if you're not motivated to do things, because you will not make progress in your life without motivation. You will not finish what you start. You see yourself starting and not finishing, starting and pausing halfway, all those kind of negative activities that does not add value to you. You get the reward, then the repeat. The repeat now happens when once your brain has noticed the pattern and has gotten the cycle completed, you see yourself wanting to repeat it from time to time, because now your brain remembers the loop. So the next time your brain senses the triggers, you know, dopamine will spike higher than before. And when it spikes higher, you'll be more motivated to even do it, to get that thing done. You get. Now, that's explaining the dopamine loop. So, I want to explain to you how dopamine can get hijacked. And this is more or less like one of the negative things that happens. So sometimes most of the good actions we take, or most of the actions we take that are positive, they give a similar range of dopamine release into our system. Yet, naturally, naturally, things that we do naturally that are not harmful or that has a positive impact, you get things that we are designed to do naturally, or things that we like doing naturally, like our hobbies from childhood. Excuse me. Our hobbies from childhood and stuff like that. There are things that we like to do, we like to partake in naturally, not like we how do I put it, are doing something out of the ordinary. Ordinary things you do, like cleaning your house, reading books, you know, getting things done, cooking your meal yourself, things that are not harmful to you. You get those kind of things now have a natural, like there's a range of dopamine spike. It doesn't surpass a certain level. It doesn't surpass a certain level. But some actions you can take that will give you so much dopamine instantaneously, higher than anything you ever like experienced before. You get. So, and it's bad, and that is what leads to addiction. Addiction is mostly for negative vices. You know, addiction. When you hear the word addiction, it follows with negative things that are difficult to stop. You get. Hobbies or things you like to do cannot be called addictions because they are not negative. You get. You can be addicted to anything, but depending on the context of if it's positive or negative, that's where you call it hobbies or you call it addiction, or you call it, like, you can't say you're addicted to keeping your environment clean. If it's now excessive, we now call that OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. That's a different topic for another day. I'll talk about that some other time. You get. So when we're younger, like most of us growing up, we used to crave to go and play football with our friends. Sometimes we crave to just go and talk with our little friends, those in our primary school, our classmates. We used to just crave things that were healthy, physical interaction with others, climbing trees to pluck fruits. Some of us even liked playing with forming a kind of like let's say motorcycle, a one wheel motorcycle that will use a stick to play with on the road, and we'll be running around and we'll be happy. Indirectly, we are exercising our bodies. Yeah, we are moving around, we are exercising our bodies, and we are interacting with others. Physical interaction with others was never a bad thing. It is never a bad thing, and it will not be a bad thing. Get physically interacting with other human beings cannot be a bad thing to do. So back then when we were young, we had all those kind of cravings. I want to go out to meet Folake. I want to go and play with Ifeanyi, Ebele. Back then we had so many things we were craving that were positive, not negative. But now things have changed, and we see the younger ones now just glued to social media, and social media releases a huge spike of dopamine, because the issue with social media is that there's no resting period. Now, a child now, or let's say a person can see notification. Next thing, you're in a haste to watch the video. You are in a haste to watch that skit. After you watch that skit, within a second or 2 seconds, on that person's notification is dropping. You're going back there. You're overflooding your brain with high levels of dopamine from activities that are not productive. Do you get? If the videos you are watching are videos that will enlighten you or give you new insight into things you don't know that are positive, that is different. But most of the content on social media is just to entertain you. So if you're always receiving a huge spike of dopamine from activities that are not positive, like just watching comedy skits, laughing after you laugh, nothing has been added to your life. Next thing you do it again and again and again and again. You're rewiring your brain. You're turning your brain that going out to talk to people is not as sweet as watching skits online. I think I will start trying to push it to this user to always be on social media, to always spending time just doom scrolling. His or her time just doom scrolling on social media. So like you're rewiring your brain, and that is bad because you're exposing yourself to something that gives you a high source of dopamine and is not productive. You get, it is not productive, and since it's not productive, you are on the losing end, because it's like saying you're telling yourself, I can get dopamine higher through this activity, and this activity in question is not an activity that is adding any value to you. So it is going to end up wasting your time, or it's going to end up making you have a lower dopamine after you finish consuming it, and to not be lower than normal. Because I'm coming to the next subtopic to explain what I'm saying to you about a lower dopamine than normal. Because when you expose yourself to something that gives you a high dopamine release frequently, regular activities will start seeming boring to you. Regular activities that are productive will start seeming, would not be interesting to you again. You will not feel interested in it anymore, because you start craving that activity that gives you the higher dopamine. Yes. So this now brings us to the subtopic called like dopamine baseline. Get now, everybody, regardless of who you are, if you're a monk, are you a priest, are you a herbalist, whatever it is you do in life, everybody has a dopamine baseline. You get, everybody has a dopamine baseline, and some people have an average dopamine baseline, while some people have a higher than normal dopamine baseline. You get, so your dopamine baseline reflects your daily activities. Like for example, now I'll say I'm kind of introverted, but I'm an ambivert. Actually, I'm in between, but I'm closer to the introvert than being an extrovert. You get, so what I gain dopamine from on a daily basis might just be keeping my environment clean, reading books, watching documentaries, monitoring the news, global news, because I like being informed. You get, these are activities that enlighten me as a person, and I get dopamine from doing those things. So my baseline might be a 5/10. You get, then there are those that are extroverted, naturally extroverted. You get, they just like being excited on a daily basis naturally, and that is due to their hormones, to their makeup. It's not like they did anything in their mother's womb to choose if they will be introverted or extroverted. These are part of their DNA from their parents that are inheriting. You get, excuse me. So it's not as if they did anything wrong to be an extrovert. No, being an extrovert is not bad. Being an introvert too is not bad. Everybody has their own baseline, their dopamine baseline. You get, so your dopamine baseline reflects your daily activity, like I've said, and when you expose yourself to a higher than normal dopamine level for a while, your baseline increases. Let me explain that now. If your baseline is a 5/10, at this 5/10, you are happy with reading books, you are happy with keeping your environment clean, you are happy with budgeting, investing, strategizing, taking baby steps, you know, the things that matter to you are on this level. If you now expose yourself to something that is higher than 5 for a while, your baseline will increase like a 7. Your baseline will no longer be a 5 again. Again, that's how dopamine baseline works. So if your baseline is a 7 and you expose yourself to activities that stimulates you more, higher, like gives you a higher dopamine release regularly, you keep on doing that activity for a while, your baseline will increase to a 9/10. And the problem is when your baseline increases from doing activities that are not sustainable, productive, get regular things that you used to do before that used to make you feel good or used to make you feel okay will no longer make you feel good anymore. You will now feel depressed. You get, depression will not come in because those regular things are no longer nice. Food doesn't taste sweet anymore. Sometimes when you eat your favorite soup, it's like, I'm not even enjoying this. This is not nice. This is not this. This is not that. When you are reading a book, you will get bored. Your attention span will be so short. Like all that will be coming to your mind is get that thing done. Get that. And that thing I'm referring to is that thing that gave you a 7 or gave you a 9. Go and do that activity. Go and do that. Your brain will be telling you because your brain feels that will give you more dopamine release than what you are doing currently. And yeah, it will give more dopamine release because that is what you exposed yourself to that was higher than what you've been exposing yourself to for a very long while. You get, and it's actually dangerous because once you start feeling that way, you start seeing your regular activities as boring, not interesting, you have developed tolerance for a higher dopamine level. And once you have tolerance for a higher dopamine level, well, it's not going to be funny because it's going to be difficult for you to actually start liking things you should do naturally, you know. Now, when you expose yourself to a high level of dopamine, after a while, you have something called dopamine crash, whereby everything will just go down way below your dopamine baseline. Yet, for example, now if you're someone that has always been gambling, World Cup just ended, some of you gambled and you lost your money in the finals. Yeah, I'm a Messi fan, but some people lost their money in the finals thinking a miracle might happen. Anyways, I knew that Argentina might not win because Spain were the better team, but let's go back to our discussion. So when you experience things that give you a higher than normal dopamine secretion regularly, for a, not regularly, just for a while, Your brain notices that and it increases your baseline. Then when you start doing normal things back, your dopamine crashes. You have a dopamine crash. And dopamine crash happens once you stop. It crashes low below your newly formed tolerance level, leading to your brain making you to do it again, which leads to addiction. So are you seeing how addiction comes? Addiction is not just like you don't just get addicted by you wake up, you do one thing once, and no, it's something you've been doing for a while or something that you've been exposing yourself to that gives you a high level of dopamine. As you're exposing yourself to that activity, you are increasing your dopamine baseline. And when you can't keep on doing that thing constantly, the dopamine will crash. When you try and do things you used to like normally that are healthy things, so you will not feel like you're doing anything sensible because your baseline has been increased and you now have tolerance for your new baseline. So you need to be careful what you expose yourself to. You know how addiction works. Let me try and just summarize it. So when you partake in activities that have a tendency to release a higher than normal amount of dopamine that you usually are exposed to, your brain will take note of it. You know, like I said, it increases your dopamine baseline. And what happens in our brain is like when you partake in that activity at first, your brain will note it to be like, whoa, this is a surge of dopamine, or more. This is a good source of dopamine. Wow, let's try and control the secretion of this dopamine. The first time, that activity that you did, if it is gambling or if it is watching X-rated videos, will give you a rush of dopamine you have not felt before. You get your brain will now tell itself to reduce the dopamine receptors in your brain. It's like saying if you have, let me give an example now. If you have five dopamine receptors, it cannot be five, there are millions, but let me just five to kind of make you understand. If you have five dopamine receptors and you flood your brain with 50 dopamine like at once, is to feel excited, get your brain will now want to reduce it to four so that the excitement will not be too much. The next time you do it again, it will not feel as exciting as the last time. So you have to now do more than necessary to get the same level of excitement. It's reduced to three. That's what leads to when you do something now, you feel so good, something negative, you feel so good. When you do that same thing, that same level of that thing the next time, it won't feel that good again because your dopamine receptors has reduced the number to a 4, a 3. It's not 5 dopamine receptors. I'm giving you an example, you get. So it reduces to a 4, a 3. And when it reduces to that lesser amount, it cannot, like, you need to pump in more to still get the same outcome that you were getting before. It's like saying narrowing the pathway, you get, you need to pump in more for it to feel, for it to enter faster. You get. So as your dopamine receptors reduce in number due to overstimulation from negative vices, you have fewer receptors. That means you need to do more to get the same outcome. Same thing with those that do illegal activities like taking hard drugs. That's why when you take this amount of this last time, okay, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, you might not like, this thing is not hitting like before. Increase the dosage. You are getting there. You're on the pathway to do. Just know it. Just know it like that. You're on the pathway to doom, to the point where you sell your house just to buy what will make you feel good, you know, and it's bad actually. So I've spoken about dopamine. I've spoken about how it works, how you get addicted. Now I want to talk about detoxing. How can you detox your dopamine? You know, dopamine detoxification is not about removing dopamine entirely from your body. No. If you don't have dopamine in your body, you won't be able to function. Every human being needs dopamine in their body to function. To even when you wake up from sleep, to stand up, to be motivated, excuse me, to be motivated to even stand up from your bed and go and have your bath and prepare for your work and wear your clothes. Dopamine is at play there. Is at play. Because what is the reward you're looking forward to if you're working for somebody? At the end of the day, is your monthly pay that is the reward. That is not instant gratification, but delayed gratification. You get, that is what keeps you going. Dopamine keeps you going. It motivates you to keep on going. You get. So when I'm saying dopamine detoxification, is I'm referring to removing activities, artificial things you do that overstimulate your dopamine triggers. You know, things that overstimulate you, moving those dopamine triggers that once you sense those trigger, you end up wanting to do something that will overstimulate your body with dopamine again, or will give you a huge surge of dopamine into your body. And most of the time, those activities that I'm talking about are not positive activities. That's why we have to detox from it. You know, we have to try and remove it from our system. We have to try and remove it from our lives entirely, if possible, because those things are the things that gives us a higher than normal dopamine baseline. So we have to detoxify our dopamine baseline back to what our dopamine baseline used to be, that we could live with, we could survive with, we could like be productive with, you know. And the steps to detoxifying ourselves is first of all, you need to identify the trigger. What's the thing that's triggering you? Same thing with habits. Identify the cue. But now for me to identify the trigger, what is that trigger that is pushing you? Once you sense that trigger, more, I need to do this, I need to do that. It might be a group of friends. For example, if you're unfortunate to be hooked on drugs. Okay, sorry I use the word unfortunate, but if you are hooked on hard drugs, you don't just start hard drugs, but most times a friend introduces you to hard drugs. So if there's a friend of yours that you know, anytime he comes visiting, you want to go out to go and do one or two nonsense with him or her, you need to start cutting off those people. And when I'm saying cutting off those people, it's not cutting off in the sense that you say don't come today, tomorrow when they come, you entertain them, then be like, no, God give me the grace, God give me the will. No, cut them off entirely. Like like they should not be coming around you again, they should not be visiting you, you should not be even hanging out with them. Because when you're around them, you start craving XYZ. You get, so they are a trigger that makes you to crave XYZ, and you shouldn't be around people that triggers you to do negative things, negative vices. You get, so after you cut them off and move them from your life, you have to make that decision. If you want to get better, you have to make difficult decisions. If you want to keep on managing your situation and keep on hoping for the best, it's up to you. So after you do that, you have to now replace them with low stimulating activities. There are some activities that you do. I won't call it low stimulating, because low stimulating means it doesn't stimulate you. I'll say naturally you have to replace them with what was your former baseline. When you were productive, there were times you were productive, there were times you were hardworking, there were times you were useful to yourself. There are things you used to do during that period. Those things you used to do during that period. Replace that high stimulating stuff with those activities you used to do. You get, it might be reading of books. It might be someone that loves reading books, but all of a sudden reading books felt boring, and doing hard drugs starts feeling interesting, because doing hard drug has exposed your body to a very high surge of dopamine that your body was not exposed to before. So you need to be careful of who you call your friends, because it's mostly your friends that will expose you to negative vices like hard drugs, watching X-rated videos and stuff like that does not have much positive impact. Does never have any positive impact. Just gives you an experience that, yeah, you experience something, and stuff like that. So after you replace them, then you wait for a while and you see that your baseline will reset back to default. Waiting for a while is not waiting for 30 minutes or waiting for one day. Rome was not built in one day. Your habits was not formed in one day. So you don't expect your dopamine level to detox in one day. To take some days. Day 1 to 3, everything will feel boring. Life is so boring. This. When I like day 4 to day 7, it's like, wow, what is happening? I'm not myself. I need this. I need that. You start feeling like you cannot do without that. That is your dopamine, your body seeking that high surge of dopamine that you've exposed yourself to from that negative activity. But after, like, let's say 15 days, a week, a week upwards of you starving yourself of that negative vice that you've been doing and trying to just keep on doing the things you used to do naturally that were giving you a good level of dopamine release, that were productive, you see that with time your body will start adjusting. It's not instantaneously, but it's with time. If you are dedicated to improving your life, if you are serious about getting better, things will get better for you with time. It's not instantaneously, you know. So that is for dopamine detoxification. Now let me now explain that there are ways you can hack your dopamine. When I say about hack your dopamine, I mean there are ways you can there's some things you can do that will give you a good rush of dopamine, and they are also healthy activities. You get, so you can initiate some healthy activities into your routine or into your lifestyle that will give you dopamine in a healthy way and to still keep you motivated. You still feel you feel good, yes, and you will not have any repercussion. You get, you will not have any repercussion in your life. So the greatest one that me I know of, and I think for my side, I think number one should be exercising. Exercising gives you a good natural surge of dopamine. You know, when you exercise, you get a surge of dopamine into your system, and it's not with any repercussion. You know, you feel good. One, you look good. Two, you're even helping your body, like you are keeping yourself healthy by exercising. So you are doing something positive, and at the same time, you are gaining dopamine. Because exercising is not something that is easy and it requires consistency. So instead of you having to look at, if I exercise now, that's what can I say? No, you can exercise every day. You can exercise every day or every 2 days or 3 times a week or anyhow you like your schedule permits you to do. But exercising gives you a good rush of dopamine in a healthy way, and it has healthy, like I won't call it side effect, or healthy outcomes. You get healthy outcomes, you get. And that one again is delayed gratification. When you delay, when you practice delayed gratification, it makes your dopamine system to work for you. You don't end up working for your dopamine system. You don't end up working to please your dopamine system, but instead your dopamine system is now working for you. You get, so instant gratification is just like saying you're taking hard drugs. You are getting dopamine surge so fast, and after a minute or 2 or 3, it has gone down again. That is instant gratification. Then delayed gratification is you control yourself to get difficult things done because you know there's a positive reward at the end of the tunnel. You get, delayed gratification is very, very good, and it is fundamental to everyone that succeeds in life. For you to succeed in life, you must practice delayed gratification, because anything you're building, anything worthwhile, does not come fast. It takes time to build. So if you're someone that you are seeing yourself just always doing things that satisfies you in the now. You're only about the now. You're not about the now and the future to come. What am I to benefit in the long run? You're only focusing on something that will give you the instant gratification now. You're making a mistake. You are making a very big mistake. You're making a very, very big mistake. You know, another thing you can do to hack your dopamine, you can set goals using milestone. You know, everybody has the goal of I want to be rich. And you can't get rich overnight only if you're a herbalist or if you kill somebody or you commit a crime. Only criminals get rich overnight. Anyone that is putting in the work cannot get rich overnight. There are processes you need to follow. There are steps you need to make. Like there are things you need to do. You need to fail. You need to fail again and fail again. And it takes time because it's from failing that you learn what not to do, what does not work, and you're not like, okay, let me now try something different. That is how you build things. That's how you build systems. You don't build something by um thinking you can get it done instantly. Anything you can do instantly that will give you this is most likely you're passing a shortcut, and there's no shortcut to success. So you have to actually set it in yourself to set goals. And when I'm saying setting of goals, use milestones. Set goals using milestones. What do I mean by that? Now, I might have the goal of, God, I want to buy a car. Buying a car, the least car I can buy now, I can think of is the Toyota Camry 2013. I think that is the most efficient car to buy as at now because of everything about the car, So that can be my goal. I want to buy a Toyota Camry 2013. You get? But when I set the goals using milestone can be, okay, I divide how much is the car? 13 million. I divide it into 13 divisions. So for every 1 million I save, I get a dopamine boost. You get? For every, you can even make it into 20, into 20, 23 divisions, like any amount you think you can divide it into. Yes, divide it, but don't set goals just to achieve just one goal. That's why you see that even in companies have milestones. And based on if they're reaching those milestones, that will determine if the investors' confidence in the company will increase or reduce. And the more milestones they like achieve, the higher the dividend most of the time, or the higher the like returns or the investments. They will pump in more investment again because people say like, oh, they're reaching all their milestones at certain point. Like Elon Musk now has packages worth billions of dollars. Why? Because he's reaching the milestones that the board members are agreeing upon. So set goals using milestones. When you set goals using milestones, you see yourself getting a rush of dopamine on every milestone you achieve. And that rush of dopamine will motivate you to get the next milestone. And that will motivate you to get the next milestone. Don't just carry the world on your head. I want to get this done. And you don't have milestones. You won't be motivated because it can't, you won't have dopamine in your system. You won't get the dopamine rush until you achieve the end goal, which can take 2 years. So for 2 years, you'll be depressed. They are telling me, no. So set goals using milestone. Set goals using milestones so that for everything you achieve, you get a rush of dopamine in a healthy manner. And when you're setting goals using milestones, you're indirectly teaching yourself delayed gratification. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win. Another thing you can decide to do is the act of like novelty, experiencing new things, going out to meet new people, going out to like new restaurants that are not too expensive, going out on just to experience new things. Go to the Lekki Conservation Center, LCC. You can go to a virtual reality place to play some VR games. You can go to a cinema. You can just try out new things. Go around different places, visit new places. When you are experiencing new things like that. You get learn new skills. Like there's so many things to do that can give you a healthy surge of dopamine. And as you're gaining new experiences, learning new skills, meeting new people, trying out new things, that those are positive ways for you to get dopamine, dopamine surge. And it's not like you have to repeat the same thing. Excuse me. Today you can try a new meal. Maybe during your next free time, maybe next weekend, you can try visiting a new place. You can also the next weekend, you can try like socializing with different people at your church. Just try out new things that will not harm you, but will give you experiences also. And at the same time, you're not losing. You're not in the loss. You're not harming yourself. You're not like exposing yourself to extremely high dopamine level. No, you're here to get dopamine rush, yes, but to be at a reasonable level, not extremely high like what some vices would expose you to. You get so you have to intentionally try out new things, try out new foods. If you have not eaten amala before, go and try out amala. Try out Panarotti pizza. Although I won't say eating processed food is healthy. I prefer eating natural foods than processed food, but still just try out new things basically. Novelty gives you dopamine, a dopamine spike, and that dopamine spike is not going to be something you have to repeating the same thing, because you can try out new things of anything. So there are many things to try out new. There are 1001 new things I'm sure you've not done before. There's some places you have not traveled to before. These are things to try, are things to give it a shot and see how it plays out. It's nothing too hard. It's nothing too hard. It's nothing too hard to try. And I'll talk about the relationship between dopamine and success. You know, there's a deep correlation between successful people always being highly motivated people. You get? Let me say it again. There is a deep correlation between people that are successful on one hand and them having the characteristic of always being highly motivated. They are highly motivated people. You get? There's something about it. You have to be highly motivated for it to become successful. There's no two way about it. You get? It's just something that is an unwritten rule of life. You have to be highly motivated for it to become successful, because success does not come overnight, and you have to fail multiple times. And when you fail, for you to keep going, you have to be motivated. If you don't have that motivation, when you fail, you might give up. But if you're highly motivated, even when you fail, and it's not only when you fail, when you meet challenges in life, when you meet difficulties, when you meet things that, you know, you don't know what to do, aside from seeking the face of God, just praying, you pray over it. God, I don't know what I'm to do now, but I'm just feeling overwhelmed, and I'm calling on you to just please guide my paths, guide my footsteps, give me the grace to keep forging ahead. You pray over it, and maybe you go to bed, you wake up, you see yourself, you continue, you just keep on moving, keep on moving. So you have to be highly motivated for you to be successful. And if you don't have a good dopamine system, you cannot be highly motivated. Yet, if your dopamine system is dependent on some vices for you to feel a surge of dopamine, then I'm sorry to let you know, but you are going to end up hurting yourself in the long run, because you see yourself doing more and more and more and more of that negative vice that does not give you value. You get? It's only when you do those negative vices that you see yourself, you are gingered, you are motivated to do something negative. Like our politicians now, Nigerian politicians, majority of them, they are motivated to embezzle. They're not motivated to like provide basic healthcare. They're not motivated to like seeing the citizens happy, smiling. It doesn't motivate them. The only thing that motivates them is their bank accounts and their offshore accounts and their mansions in Ikoyi that they store money with. Like negativity fuels them. Positive thing doesn't fuel them. That's why we need to have a reset of there's a lot on politics aspect. I don't even go too deep because I might start getting emotional and getting angry with life. So let me not get there. So you need to be someone that's highly motivated for you to succeed in life. Because for you to succeed, you pass through a long, boring phase. There's a long, boring phase you pass through whereby you won't see the outcome instantly. It's until after a while before you now start seeing the outcome. You will not see the outcome of the activity, of the effort you're putting in now. It's after a while. And that's why it is called delayed gratification. That's why it's called delayed gratification. So you need to take some time to rest. People that are successful, they don't run marathons. They want sprints, they rest. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, but that's not a full statement though. We've been made to believe that all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. That's not the full statement. I don't have time for that now, but basically you need to take breaks. No matter what it is you are doing, you need to take breaks. You need to learn to take breaks, like to pause, to rest. If you set a milestone, like I told you, set your goals using milestones. When you set milestones and you achieve the first milestone, rest. Buy yourself a treat. Maybe eat some processed food. I'm not advising it. I'm not advising. No, you know what? Eat some healthy food. If you can't cook, call your siblings to cook for you. If your siblings are far away and you have a girlfriend, call your girlfriend or your boyfriend or you can cook. If you can cook, go and treat yourself to some nice stuff. Eat proteins, a balanced diet, you know, just relax and reward yourself for achieving that milestone. So you need to take breaks. If you are always on the move, 1, 2, 3, there's no rest, no rest. At some point, you would burn out. And when you burn out, you crash. And when you crash, nothing, you can't do anything. You have to just rest. Mandatory rest. So don't wait for your body to force you to rest, but instead, you rest after a while of you putting in the effort. You get. So people that are successful, they take rest. They don't overwork themselves for too long. You get. Successful people, number one, they're highly motivated. Number two, they take breaks as they achieve different milestones. You get. So I think I've explained a lot on dopamine, and my final statements to everyone out there is basically number one, just pick out one negative high dopamine trigger in your life that is weakening your motivation. We all know we have something we are doing that we need to stop doing. There's something I'm doing, there's something you are doing, that is not healthy but gives you dopamine. It might be doom scrolling on social media, consuming entertainment. It might be watching X-rated videos. It might be, I hope it's not, but it might be doing hard drugs. It might be gambling. There's so many things we do that are negative vices that can give us that rush of dopamine when we think of it, the trigger. Cut off at least one. Just pick only one. I know you might have like 100, but pick one for a start. Pick one, cut it off. They want to detail, like I told you, it will be boring. Feel like, there's nothing about life. Life is so boring. Everything will look so bad. Is your body trying to let you know that it is used to like receiving this surge of dopamine? All of a sudden, you've cut off that thing that trigger that gives you that sort of dopamine. You've cut it off. Day 4 to day 7 is very difficult. The fourth day to the seventh day, after you decide to stop doing something that is not positive to you, is very difficult actually. But on day 8, you feel somewhat better. And at the same time, if you're wise enough, if you're trying to cut off some negative vices, give yourself milestones. You get Give yourself milestones in cutting off negative vices. Don't just be like, I want to stop this forever. No, give yourself milestones in the sense of, is one day I haven't done this, I've survived. Is 1 week I haven't done this, I survived. You aim for 2 weeks, you aim for 3 weeks, you aim for 1 month, and all of a sudden, after a while, you see that, wow, your body is now readjusting to its normalcy. Things that are healthy that you used to do before are now looking interesting to you once again. But it takes dedication and it takes time. It's not instantaneous because you didn't learn that bad stuff instantly. It's only some hard drugs that once you try them out, happy to you. Breaking Bad. You go, what's part of Breaking Bad? So like, please, yeah, take action. You can do it. I believe everybody can do it because everybody has a strong will. It just we don't rate ourselves highly. You are capable of achieving everything you set your mind to. Everything that comes to your mind, you can achieve it. And I believe you will achieve it. You know, you will achieve it. Your dopamine system control your motivation, your drive, and your ability to succeed in life. Do with this information whatever you will. God bless you and have a nice day ahead. Peace out.